It is 6 o'clock. Call the Parks and Rec meeting to order for February 12th, 2024. And Diana, if you would call the roll.
Bruce?
Here.
Charlie?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
Denny?
Here.
Shelby?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Leonard?
Here.
We got a full meeting here tonight, all right. And the approval of the minutes. You've all got copies of the November 13th, 2023 minutes. If you see any changes, I believe you received them in your email as well. If you see any changes that need to be made, please let the chair know. Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any objections? None. That's approved unanimously. And we'll move on to number 4, which is the Joey's lease agreement. That a special council meeting last Monday. At special council meeting last Monday, the Joey's lease agreement was approved in form by the council. And the approved form of the agreement was, to my understanding, presented to the tenant this weekend by the city attorney, but I did not talk to him today, so I don't know the status of whether it's signed or not. Do you know? Okay. So it was presented to her this weekend, but it was in the form that was approved, and I know that at the meeting she was happy with the decision of the council, so it's just a matter of getting the lease agreement signed now. So that's the status of the lease agreement. Anybody have any questions on the lease, final lease? Okay. Program agreements. Blake?
I'd like to bring up our program agreements that we have with the organizations that utilize our facilities. And the reason I'd like to do that is there are some inconsistencies with what we do. For example, the Sylvan Hills Athletic Club, they pay roughly $3,000 a year in donations back to the facilities. The Sherwood Volley organization, which started this year, paid a $25 per child fee to the city, a total of $3,025. The Sherwood Sharks, when they were an organization that was outside of the city, they paid $250 per meet. The Dolphins, who currently utilize our swimming pool for their practices and things of that nature, pay $100 a month. And the Sherwood Soccer Club makes purchases over the last 5 years that range from $2,500 to $16,000 of, to go back into the program or to the facilities. I would like for us to come up with a way for it to be consistent. The couple ideas that came to my mind were, with the Sherwood volleyball offered $25 per registration. I thought that was a pretty easy idea for them coming in. There's not a lot of maintenance that goes on them. They offered that up. The other side of it is there's not as much maintenance goes into the volleyball. Out of the sports complex, we maintain the fields, we purchase the chalk, we purchase the equipment that takes care of the fields. There's very little maintenance that goes into that. The soccer fields, the same way. They're purchasing equipment, the bleachers and all the goals that are out there, they purchased. And to my knowledge, they've just done it. It wasn't something that was requested. And going back and forth with Shane Hill, he sent me the invoices to, in lieu of the $25 registration that we talked about. He said, that's fine, if we could do that next year based on this. I said, well, we're not looking to get money out of it. What we want to do is be consistent when somebody utilizes our facilities. And I don't think we have been. I don't even think our program agreements read consistently. So what I would like for us to do as the city is to come up with a program agreement. And I've done a lot of research on different cities across the country and how they do things. They're all pretty lengthy. There's a lot of language in there. However, it's pretty consistent with the organization that uses it, the parameters that go into it. Some of them had a per child fee, not very much. And some of them just, they got to use them for free. I'd like to know, I'd like a couple recommendations if possible, or just kind of where y'all would like for us as a city to go to it, because it's never come before. Speaking with Sonny Jansen, he just wrote them, changed them, and executed them. And it just kind of went that way. However, as some of the programs have changed, so has what was in the contracts, and it didn't go to other programs. So my thought is, let's get something that's consistent across the board, or something that we're comfortable with as a city, when they come utilize our facilities, that we are being consistent with it. And I'm open for whatever we want to do. I'm not worried about a per fee, whatever we want to do, but I think it needs to be consistent. And I think that it also should be taken into consideration the amount of maintenance and staffing that goes into executing some of these programs as well, so.
The
And keep in
fees that you
mind-
got from the agreements that you got from the other cities across the country and across the state, you said that some of them were free, some of them had a nominal fee. Did any of them appear to take into consideration the amount of maintenance or whatever that it required, so that they had different fees across different sports or whatever?
There's one that said, the field that they had for this program agreement was like $125,000 budgeted per year from the taxpayers, and they took that in consideration. And, if it's here it is, for, field to ensure that it's playable by youth sports, therefore, town administration has responsibility to ensure all activities on the taxpayers' fields are for public use. Then there's some of them in there that, some didn't qualify because they were not nonprofit organizations, such as your tournament directors coming in, things of that nature. So there were some that were program agreements, and then they also had pre-qualifications in order to get the exemptions. So there's several of them, but it's kind of what do we want to be comfortable with? Mm-hmm. There was another one, there's a bunch of samples that were on there, and then there's another one that was,
And I think part of this is the fact that, that the purpose of this committee is advisory in nature only. And so, but this is a lot of, do we want to change things and how we go forward? Do we not? And you guys all have different experiences. Most of you, certainly more in the ballpark area. And so I think that was kind of the purpose of getting some input from you guys as to what do you all think in terms of going forward. And maybe the $25 that volleyball did works for volleyball, but maybe that's too much for other sports,
I think that we all know the limitations of our authority and our power here, Mayor, and it's rude to remind us of it, but that I think that our advice is typically considered very heavily by the city council, very seriously by the city council when we give it. And I think that we should be advised of things that go on in Parks and Rec on a regular basis. And I'm still chafing a little bit from what was done with the swimming program.
Well, we had to
without
make a
being
decision in
notified.
December,
Without
and
being notified.
there was no meeting in December
We
or
all have
January.
emails, however, but.
So,
The thing I'm wondering, I like the per diem, and I like what the mayor's saying about per diem and adjusting them slightly, but for it to be consistent, I think you can't do, $75 per kid in one and $10 per kid in the other. They've
a lot of
got
the
to
consistency
vary.
comes in the language of the contract, the expectations for the program, the expectations for the city. What are we going to provide as the city parks department? We're going to maintain the facilities. We're going to have your fields ready to play. We're going to have the pool ready for people to come in. If it's soccer, they're going to be painted right. We're going to do everything we can to clean the bathrooms based on the agreements in there. So that's really where the more consistency comes from, that make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. We have one program that cleans their restrooms at all times. We never have to clean up after them. We have another one that we have to spend hours cleaning up after.
Right.
It's just a little bit of that, and then there's stuff in there written that says, all right, we agree to clean these bathrooms and we'll be charged if we don't, but there's no charge that's ever gone. And I'm not saying we charge people if they don't do it. However, we need to
Yeah.
acknowledge the fact that it wasn't done.
And so be more consistent in those
Correct.
requirements too.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah,
changes that can be done
and-
across the
All the
board.
agreements are pretty consistent, have been for years, just because I've seen a ton of these contracts, and they have been fairly consistent with that. Now, you're talking about the cleaning up the bathroom. It is in the contract, but it's never, ever been enforced. Sonny has always said, hey, we got that, we'll take care of it, we'll take care of it. So we've not, or I say we, the club, has never been, told that they have to do that. If they would have told, hey, guys, we're not doing it anymore,
Okay.
y'all go ahead and do that, and I think they would.
They've been
It's not a big
told.
deal.
Well, do you
So-
mean,
They've
Yeah.
been told. I've been in meetings where they've been asked to do that.
Oh,
so.
sure.
Do you
Well,
mean
I'm sure they have.
consistency?
Excuse me, just a second. So, but let me finish with the $25 thing that we're talking about. How many kids were in the volleyball thing?
3,075 divided by
No,
25.
how many kids?
$3,075
So
divided by
you
25.
do the $25 per kid for the shack, and that's around $12,000-13,000. I don't, so let's go back to the reason.
We also
the
talked
way-
about the 25 was
just
just a
second.
number, and that is something that we will discuss here rather than saying it is
Yes, you
across the
did.
board. Thank you.
That's exactly right,
why
and
we-
I appreciate that. And let me just go ahead and say, so that everybody knows, that Shaq had a meeting, and Blake was there, and we aired things out. I think it was a good meeting. And Blake has committed to, if there are changes that need to be made, that he would work on changing those, or agree to sit down and discuss some of those changes. So I appreciate
It
that,
starts, it should, it's what we're doing here, and
Exactly.
it starts here.
and I appreciate that.
No problem.
But, that ballpark was built for a service for the kids. I mean, we've talked about this a million times, and Bruce was there. I've talked to old council members that were there. It was built for the citizens of Sherwood. And we never, if somebody from Jacksonville came over, we turned them away. We said, man, this is Sherwood kids. These are kids from Sherwood. North Little Rock, same thing. So, our citizens pay taxes that go to the Parks and Rec. I just don't think that it's fair. Now, just because they agreed to do that, and that's fine, whatever that number is, for the volleyball, they agreed, you said that it was their idea to come up, that's fine. But the club has, in the past, has been required to pay a 2% hamburger tax. Now, you and I discussed that, talking about,
A&P tax.
how much they paid, how much they give away or whatever. But if you look at that park, and Bruce, jump in here anytime on the parks, the blue building, we had a substantial amount of money in the blue building. The smaller blue building, we got that blue building. We have paid for redoing fields. We have paid for, the only batting cage that's out there, and I think I mentioned this the other day, that's not paid for by the club, is the one the high school uses. I think y'all ended up paying for that.
Yeah, we bought that.
Right, yeah. So, and when we put the money in, the last thing that I remember, I'm sure they've done some other stuff too, was the blue building, huge amount of money. And Sonny at that time was like, hey, basically you guys have put a substantial amount of money in there. Let's not, right now you don't have to worry about that. Now that was just hey, thanks. We wrote a check for $20,000 for the green wall out there. We paid for that. So, it's not like the club does not invest in that program. We do, we have. And it's been a good partnership between the clubs to allow a club of 75 years to continue on at where it's at, and let these guys, a nonprofit, it's a nonprofit organization. Really, I was told just today, as a matter of fact, there are like the PAL League. The PAL League the city of North Little Rock gets grants for the PAL League to actually, they give them money to run the program.
Yeah, they reached out to come here, and we already had a league, so they didn't.
Do I?
They reached out to come here as well, but we already had a league, so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
partnered with them, so
Yeah.
we've helped.
So I don't know what that number
Well,
is.
I also don't think
know
anybody's
the
saying that
12,000
nobody's,
hang on.
nobody's saying the Shack has not been a, a very supportive member or whatever. Nobody's saying that. We're not arguing that fact. That's not the
But
point.
let me get back to this. I don't know that we have folks want to sign their kids up and they have to pay now $100 and something, and then we're going to turn around and say, hey, because the volleyball team has agreed or whatever, the city has said, we're going to give $25 back to, they're struggling to pay that for their kids to play there, and then we're going to ask them to put another $25 in to go wherever. So whatever that number is, and I'm sure that, we need to, like I said, 2% is what in the past, correct? In fact, there was a time, Kat reminded me of this, I didn't remember this, but Kat, we were required to put 10% into a park. What? Yeah, so that we had to pay that. That was early 2000s, maybe even the 90s. But
Well, I mean,
So when you say consistency, you're talking about consistency amongst the baseball program year after year, right? Because it's not consistent when you look at per sports. And I'm not saying, I'm just trying to clear that. That's what I was trying to clear up in terms of that point. And you're saying that only kids who live in Sherwood are allowed to play at our ball fields?
no, well,
no, that's
The
not,
way
even- it's
we
not
had
even
it-
probably
the
60%
way we had it
now.
before, and the Shack now, I don't know if they take, because
So when
They
you,
take
the rule-
anybody.
if you played for Cal Ripken, you had boundaries, and you only allowed those kids in that boundary to play at your park. You could not cross boundaries.
But now you can.
Different now?
Yes.
Okay.
And
There
so
are no boundaries.
So
when-
for years,
when you lived out in Gravel Ridge,
do I,
when you lived out in the county,
correct?
your kids played for Sherwood?
Absolutely, yes, because that's where the boundary was.
Right, but but you were saying only Sherwood kids could play in Sherwood. So I'm just trying to clarify
Is
that
Gravel Ridge not Sherwood?
it is now.
Yeah.
But not when your kids were playing in it, it wasn't.
No.
And that's
not until
okay.
2008.
And I think and I don't think we should exclude kids from North Little Rock
No,
or
and they-
Jacksonville or
the Shack does
wherever.
that.
I
The
mean,
Shack does. They let people play from
Yes.
wherever they sign up from. They do a good job of anybody that comes to play. They sign up. They don't turn anybody away, and they shouldn't. And
That's
the other side of it is there are no boundaries, like you said. And that's a Cal Ripken thing. That's who they sanction with, which is fine. There's tournament teams that come in and play. They stepped out from what was the norm and started allowing tournament teams in. The organization did, which is not the same as it was done in the past as well. And that was their choice.
Bad mistake, in my opinion.
But I also think that our job for those parks is to kind of fill it up, make sure there's people there playing. One of the arguments that came back against me when I was talking about it at the meeting the other day was, if my team practices on Monday and it rains out, I've got to have a guarantee that I get it on Friday, which is even if we rent it to somebody else who's wanting to come and play. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. It's the wrong way to look at it. That's not what we're trying to do. We want to fill the park up. There's a place for tournament teams. There's a place for tournaments to come in and play. There's a place for the league. My son's played in the league. He's played tournament ball. I think, I played in the league when it first was built. I think there's a place to play. I think there's a way to accommodate out there. There's 7 days a week. And I think that's where we get lost up in this. We want to figure out a way to make sure everybody has a place to play ball. And to me, that's the ultimate goal. It's not to charge $25 a person that comes and play. It's not for the city to collect $25. But it's also to find a way for, in any sport, to be able to help accommodate people come to play in our facilities. But along those lines are some rules and regulations that we have to be able to enforce, we have to ask, and we need to have consistency with. You know, the $25 is the thing that's been hanging up over here for a while, and that is just a piece of the puzzle. It doesn't have to be 25. Nobody said it had to be 25. But an in-kind donation tied to it was an in-kind donation. It was tied to fees that were coming in from the concession stand. Well, the concession stand wasn't being tracked as well as it is now, and there was things called shack dollars that get handed out to volunteers or whatever it is. Well, that's revenue that would come in. The Sylvan Hills Athletic Club also does not have to, they don't pay the
A&P.
A&P tax. They're exempt from it. So, you know,
That's
we-
the
there's-
2% you were talking
Well, they weren't.
Well,
They've
they all.
they've paid that in the past.
Well.
Not for a
they're-
while.
I don't know. I can't speak to
Well, I
all the
can't,
past.
and they have.
What I'm saying is though, it's
No,
not.
but I agree with, I know what you're saying, and I don't, I mean, all of you know my passion for this program. It runs deep, and, I mean, my fear is we get to the point that we're not, and I know you're not intentionally, none of us will intentionally do this. But eventually, I mean, you can look over at softball and see what's happened. You can look at Burns Park. None of them intentionally meant to, I mean, the only word that's coming to my mind is to destroy or to kill a program. That's not what anybody sets out to do. But it happened.
Are you saying
and
we're trying to kill the program by
That's
doing
not,
this?
no. What I'm saying is nobody's intentionally doing that. They didn't intentionally do that. But you can see that it's happened because once you start to get, and Bruce could talk a lot about this, once you start to let a bunch of these tournament teams get in there, then it just starts to squeeze these guys out. And there's all kinds of data to show that. You can see that. But here's my fear, or here's what I want. If you want to have tournaments, that's great. I even told you, hey, maybe it's time for the city to have tournaments on the weekend, that's fine. But my fear is the little guys who don't have a chance to play U-Trip, who don't have a chance to play select ball, or maybe not even play high school. I mean, I've told the story
Everybody needs a
about
place
the
to play.
kid.
We talk, yeah, we agree. Everybody needs a place to play.
Yes, that's exactly right.
They will always have
I've
a place to
told
play.
the story about the little kid that we let play down that was handicapped, that got his only hit, that scored the winning run. And I want everybody that's not going to have a chance to play that level, have a place to play. And again, nobody sets out to do that. That's my fear. I don't want to squeeze out the little guy.
Well,
Does that make sense?
no, there's no intention
Of course there's
of
not.
that ever. I think one of the things that, you know, I know only what people have been coming and talking to me in terms of baseball from, you know, the high school on down to little ones and some of the problems. Clearly, baseball has been evolving, and the demands have been changing in time, and I don't think that, you know, that initial, what you're talking about, giving that place, you know, for everyone, no one is talking about that at all, but when you look at the numbers, Blake told me in the meeting the other night that you talked about, like, you know, back when you were, you know, very heavily involved and your kids were involved, it was like 1,500. And now we're down struggling with a couple of hundred. You know,
They're up a little bit from.
It had 500 last year, I think. Is that what it was? That's the
I don't
number that
know.
I got, around 500.
you know,
They're
so,
about-
I mean, and my point with that is, so clearly, without the city doing anything, something's happening in terms of the demands or the evolution of baseball or what have you. And so, as a city, we've got to try to figure out, okay, we don't want to just allows something to just ride its way down. So something's not quite
So-
working, but we need to find out a way to accommodate more.
Well, a lot of it is, in tournament baseball is here. It's here to stay.
That's what-
That's what
Unintentionally.
happened. That's what
That's
happened.
what-
You can't have tournament
Unintentionally,
baseball
the
without
club
the.
has allowed
and it-
teams to develop. They come in, you can bring a whole team in during the fall. They don't have to be from Sherwood. They don't have to have, I mean, the days of saying you have to play in Sherwood are done. We don't have non-resident rates in any of the stuff we used to have. But when we were going to these meetings, they were discussing these things. My son was on the 7-year-old all-star team. We're gonna put it together. We're gonna stay together in the fall. We came out here and it was the most, some parents enjoy this. They won every game by about 18 or 19. It was not fair. It was terrible. But I told the club at some meetings, I said, you are giving us an opportunity to test drive our team to go play tournament ball. And that's exactly what we did. We played in the league till he was 6. The reason why we didn't leave at 6 is because it shattered in half. There was half the team that left and went and played on the organization, and the others stayed. So then we got another all-star team at 7. That team is all gone, except for one came back. You know, and it is different now. I 100% believe that it's kind of like the youth basketball program. It's not your high school teams. It's not select teams that come in here and play. It is a rec league. I believe in the rec league. I played in the rec league. I represented the state in the rec league. I've coached in that rec league. I took teams to nationals from that rec league. As passionate as you are, I'm as passionate to make sure that doesn't die
I agree.
in any form or fashion. I've played there. I've coached there. My son's played there. I mean, it's different now, though, than even when I was coaching Cody's age.
So let's back up. I'm listening. So here's my question. Is our goal, are we trying to bring in tournament teams? I mean, we're dodging all around
No,
it. Are we
see-
trying to bring in tournament teams?
Are we trying to bring in They're
Yeah.
here. They're here.
But are we trying to give them preference? Are we trying to
No.
make sure we got space for tournament teams? Is that what we're trying to do?
Are we making, there's enough practice times for the league.
Okay.
There's also enough practice times for the tournament teams. There's enough space on the weekends to host tournaments. There's enough space at our fields to accommodate all of that. You can rent softball fields and go, tournament teams have been renting with us for years.
Because I
So
agree,
there's
the tournament
enough.
teams are here,
They're here.
but I'm passionate about it as well. My kid played ball there. I coached and did all that stuff. So yes, I do want to make sure that we have the space
Right.
for those kids that just can't do it. I coached basketball at the rec. I mean, we got to have a place for those
Exactly.
kids
And there
that
is.
can play.
There absolutely
That's
is.
my biggest concern. So that's one. Two, I believe in consistency. You know, if we want to have consistent forms that people are filling out, but I do agree with Councilman Harmon down here as far as the rates. I mean, it's going to be all over the place. I don't think we can have a consistent rate where everybody pays 50, whatever that dollar amount is for their kid to play. Now, we talked about, I guess, volleyball. They agreed to give us $25, whatever. The way I look at that, man, if somebody is going to agree, we're going to give you this, that's their donation. So I don't think we should expect the other sports to donate because we got one that is donating. It's kind of like you go to church. Not everybody donates the same amount. It's what you can do is what you're able to pay. Because at the end of the day, if we do put that $100 per kid or $25 per kid or whatever it is, well, you said there was $1,500 to $16,000 that they were doing with soccer. They're going to stop doing that. They're going to be like, well, we giving y'all money, so y'all find a way to pay for the rest. So I think we're kind of putting ourselves in a corner if we start
and
there.
that's my point of, let's figure out what we want to do, how we want to do things, not go back into the history of where we are, where we're going and things of that nature. Let's figure out what we want to do.
Because if people want to do it, I want to let them do it. They want to
Yeah.
spend $16,000 on the soccer, let them do it.
Let them do it.
But if we give them a thing saying, this is what y'all got to give us, they're going to be like, we're not giving y'all anything else.
Right.
I think the line that you have to decide is what's your priority.
Yeah, that's why.
So what I mean is, as being a baseball guy, you know, the game has changed. Nobody likes change. But you know, almost every one of our kids that come up and play on our high school baseball team are travel ball kids. You don't get as many in league, but at the same time, I'm with Mike. You know, kids need it. There's studies that show if they're involved, they're stay out of trouble. You know, and not every kid's going to be able to get a scholarship. Not every kid's going to be able to go on to play pros. You have to have it. But I think the biggest deal that we have to decide is what is the city's priority going to be on their fields. And I do believe, my own opinion, that it can be for both, but one has to have a priority. And, you know, to me, the league in itself has been the priority for 75 years. So why are we wanting to change something that's been here for 75 years on the league? Now, that league, as you said, the numbers used to be 1,500, so the numbers are 500 now. So what that means is there are more times, there are more space, there are more weekends that you can still have and bring in something or have some guidelines. But I think the biggest deal, we can argue all day and go back and forth. I think everybody in here is for kids.
Yeah.
But I think the priority's got to be, we first got to come up with what's going to be our priority, and then what's going to be the guidelines for our priority.
Right.
Then second, if we're going to bring in, open up, hey, these weekends, because when you do drive by, there's been many weekends over the past years that I drive by on a Saturday and I'm thinking, man, this place is empty except for the high school team up here. This would be a great time for it to make. But at the same time, I think we got to really, you know, go back, what's the priority, set what the priority is. I don't think you can have, we don't have the same rules at the high school for every sport, because every sport's a little different. I mean, I think you're going to have some different guidelines. But I think we got to decide first if we're going to use the ball fields as our priority. If it's going to be league, well, let's set this league up. Let's get the league right.
Right.
And then let's go through and, hey, we still got fields that we can be used. We got tournament weekends that we could be used. How can you come together? But I think we can argue back and forth until we got to get the first thing.
Right.
And-
And I
and
think
to-
it's
and
an
to-
excellent, I think an excellent point that excellent points have been made, and that the fields were built for league. They were built for the kids that are never going to play travel ball, are never going to play, that may never make your baseball team, but that love the game of baseball, that love getting out on the weekend, that need baseball, that need to have something to do, and that's why the fields were built that I played on at the end of West Maryland, because I never got to play on these fields, but I was around when these fields were built. I was at this council meeting when my dad was on the council, and they voted on the fields, and I was down there when they cut the ribbons on the fields. So I remember when these fields were built. And, you know, I love the fact, and the Optimist Club at the time was right there in the middle of it. The Optimist Club continued to ride on, moving from the fields in West Maryland to the current fields. And like you say, it's a 75-year tradition. And so, you know, I think, but also it's a good point that we've gone from 1,500 kids to 500 kids, which does lend some flexibility when it comes to scheduling.
Yeah.
It lends flexibility to weekends and things like that. Now, Bruce has been trying to say something for a little while now.
I'm having a hard time here because I lived through this for better than 20 years. And yes, it's gone down, but some of that's because of conscious decisions that were made by the city, by the Parks Department. Why you say tournament ball is here, and it's just here. They made a decision. That's the way it's going to go. I heard them say it. This is coming. It's going to happen. And all of a sudden, the focus started going on, let's take care of these tournaments over here, and you guys handle your thing. I had Keith Rankin come one time, councilman. He came up and helped us get ready for our 4th of July tournament because we had rain. We were the only ones there working the field. We were trying to get the field ready. After rain, we had 5 fields, we had all these teams, and the city's over here running a tournament, because that's where you make money.
Bruce, when was
It-
this? Just to give me a point of reference.
You're asking me to remember what year, and I can't remember what year. My son played
It's
till,
got to be back in 2000, because that's
Yeah.
when
Well, Keith's been gone
Yeah.
since 2008.
It was a long time.
2009.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the early 2000s when Keith.
but that wasn't the only thing. If you look at the program now, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, because I hadn't been up here. I left, okay? Because I stayed 8 years after my son finished high school. I stayed a long time, until they finally got to a point where they didn't want me there anymore, because I had old school ideas. I wasn't for the tournament team stuff. But all these folks have been sold the idea, these young parents and young people have been sold this idea that being on a tournament team, that's gonna make your kid get to college and be a pro. That's not true. I'm sorry, it's just not true. And the coaching sometimes is not as good as what we had in the league. This park was not built so we could have, well, let's just take all the leftover kids that aren't good enough to play ball and we'll put a rec thing out here and we'll have that. When we had what you call a rec league, it was a league of everybody, all-stars and everything. Now that's changed. You're right, it has changed. But I think decisions that were made here caused that to change. And the other thing you're not thinking about is, what does it cost to run volleyball and what does it cost to run a baseball program? I assure you, it's a lot more to run the baseball program.
I think the last day they did was $150 per kid to
Yeah,
run it.
and we used to charge $60.
Yeah.
Okay, because, you know, that, it took that, and we did have some, where we made our monies, we had tournaments, and we'd saved that money every year, and Denny got the building donated for the batting cage inside, but it was laying in the parking lot. And we spent a ton of money on concrete and putting that up, and then Mike Bromley donated and put up plywood on the inside, so that when they throw a ball, it wouldn't tear the thing up. There's so much history here of what we did, but we went away from it. And we started focusing more on, okay, here's the teams. Well, now, I looked at the new contract. I'm not sure what it's been like the last few years, but I don't see rec ball on weekends. This new tournament thing, this new contract says, hey, Thursday night, even on Thursday night, if there's a tournament that starts the next day, the way I read it, if there's a tournament starts on Friday, Thursday night's off. So you don't even get Thursday. You get Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Not here on Wednesdays. You got 3 days a week, and there's not any weekends, or if there is, it's very limited. Maybe you get some tournaments if you schedule those ahead of time. We've made the thing more about what are we doing to make some money over here on the tournament side than we have, let's support a program for all the kids, and let's also educate these parents. I promise you, if a kid comes out and plays ball at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and he plays 70, 80 games a year, by the time he gets to Denny and them, he's tired. I don't want to play baseball anymore. I'm tired of this. I want to go to the lake. I want to do stuff with my friends. I want to do something else. They're going to go down when they should be peaking, trying to make the high school team, trying to make the college, trying to make whatever they can make, the ones that really love the game. But that's, I'm preaching now. I don't mean to preach. The real question is, like Denny says, what do you want to do? What do you want to have here? And if you want to have a rec league, not let's just, let's get a few volunteers and have 5 or 6 people come in here and handle these kids that are left over, are we going to have a real program? And then are we going to get behind that program 100%? When the tornado came and wiped out the second floor of the Optimist Club, the decision was made to not put that second floor back because of the ADA or whatever. You got to put something in, spend a little more money to do it. But when you did that, the club used that second floor to watch all the fields all the time. We could see everything all the time. And if a tournament's going on or game's going on, some kind of conflict going on, we could send somebody down right away. Now people have to sit up out there in 100-degree weather out on a picnic table and hope they can see them. Well, guess what? You start having people who want to be involved. What are you doing to encourage volunteers to come and help run a league? Because this is all volunteers. There's not anybody that I know of gets paid except maybe the concession stand manager, which you can't hardly get that without paying somebody.
And the
Okay.
office manager.
And the office manager. Those are kind of paid because they're more full-time. Everybody else comes and spends their time after they get off work. They rush up here, and some of them coach in addition to trying to be on the board. I don't know how much money I spent on baseballs out of my own pocket and equipment, or if a kid can't get a ride, go and give them a ride. We do all this stuff, and now we're going to come back and say, okay, we want to charge you some money so we can put some money in. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the money, but we're going to charge some more money when you're just making it. If you If you make extra money, it's because you put in extra effort. You put in extra tournaments. And we had some tournaments. We had some big tournaments. We had national tournaments, and we had people asking us, can we bring our tournament back here next time? But we quit doing it. We used to have a 70-team T-ball state championship here. Okay, we've got people in American Legion baseball now that came from here that run the thing. We don't have American Legion team anymore. Okay, I'm sorry, we just don't. There's so much stuff on this thing that I've watched it, and Mike talks about his passion. I lived it, man. I lived and breathed that to the expense of my own family sometimes. And I regret that part of it. But I truly love baseball. And I loved what was happening with baseball. And I loved what we did here. And we had, if a kid didn't have the money to play, we let him play. That's college. All they had to do was just ask. They didn't have to publicly announce it. They just come up and say, look, I don't really have the money. Can my kid play? They could play. You know, the intent, the city had and has the potential to have a really great program for all the kids. But it's become misguided. And it's not just Sherwood. It's the NIL and college sports. It's all about money anymore, okay? And when you get into the tournament teams, who gets the best team? I can get the best players to play for me if I've got the money. I'm going to give you 2 new bats, 2 new bags. I'm going to pay all your entry fees. I'm going to pay for you some new cleats. I'm going to pay for all. Well, guess where them good players are going to go? They're going to get together. And does that make them better? No. It doesn't make them better because now they go and they play and they win 18-1, like you said. Does that challenge them any in the least? No, but in the league, we used to have a board that was balanced. Maybe 1 or 2 of them had kids in the program playing, but the rest of them didn't. Their whole deal was to manage what's this program about, okay, and take care of all the kids. We would have times where you get down to the last 2 weeks of the season and 5 of those 8 teams were in the hunt to win the league. The mess up was with all-stars. You could take all-stars and you had to pick all-stars some way. So they let the coaches pick all-stars. Well, that's always political. The top 5 players, everybody knew who it was. They knew the best players. The next 5, you could swap with the 5 after that, and you wouldn't notice any difference in the team. But the 5 that got left off, they decided, let's go play U-trip ball, or let's go do something else. And I'm going to pull some of the other all-stars, so the league started deteriorating. All-stars it's a good thing. I think the kids that are truly competitive need to be challenged at a level they need to be challenged at. But it kind of got messed up. But it really comes back, this whole thing comes back to, what do you want to do? Do you want to make money, or do you want to have a league for all the kids to be in? And I'm sorry that I'm preaching to you. I'm passionate about it. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak about this stuff. But you can have a league, but it's more than just saying, well, here's a field and we got it chalked out there and there it goes. It takes a program. It takes dedicated volunteers to do the work, and then it takes support from the city to back those volunteers. And you got to have some kind of purpose for what are we trying to do here? And what we should be trying to do is to teach young people about sportsmanship and how to learn the game and to get along with others and become good members of society. It shouldn't be about, well, we're trying to create a New York Yankee here. Believe me, there's not going to be but one out of this whole park ever, hardly. I mean, we might have had 8 kids over the whole time period. The deal is, what can we do to develop kids and help them understand, we got to be part of a team. You teach them about teamwork and team play and good sportsmanship and how you treat each other. And you work on things like, how do we deal with parents, okay? These parents get out there and you got these T-ball. I always wanted to move all the parents and T-ball out to the outfield so the kids could play the game and have a good time. But instead, you got these screaming parents on both sides yelling at each other like I'm gonna yell at you loud enough, you're gonna do better. No, you're not. You're gonna do better when you get people in there, and you have to have training for coaches. You know, coaches, some of them played ball and that, and they have these ideas, but they don't know, they're just dads, you know. Some of them have some background. Every once in a while, you get somebody who played college ball and knows what he's doing, but a lot of them don't know. You don't have that many of them. So there's so many things that you need, and they cost money. To add on another fee is not a good thing, in my opinion, okay? To get behind the program and decide what you want to do, that's,
And
Bruce, I'll tell you
That's
this,
where
I came back and I'll tell you, the makeup of this year's board compared to last year's board had half of tournament coaches. They were on the board for the access. I think to a lot of your point, I think the board right now's makeup is very, very pro club. I think there's a lot of people in there, and I came back and was telling the mayor, individual I never met before named Pierre, had wonderful questions. Asked him about what do we do, you know, hearing both sides, what do we do? And I think we offered up a lot of suggestions about if we're gonna do tournament ball, why not incorporate that within the league structure? Get with Lone Oak, get with the other people doing Cal Ripken that are gonna eventually go to Cal Ripken leagues. Let's have inter-city league tournaments. I mean, there was a lot of ideas that were presented to not get away from the tournament ball, but incorporate that within the league structure.
and we did that.
Yeah,
We
and-
did that in the past.
Right,
And we got burned, and we got burned because somebody was greedy and
Well,
wouldn't do it.
Right,
I think the
and-
other side of it is they do not play on the weekends because the club hasn't.
Well, let
wanted
me
to.
say something about that. And you know, when we were there, and I'll say this and shut up because I know you're probably dying over here, but when we had a lot of kids in the program, we did play on weekends. And as the mayor said, things have changed, and they have changed. The last several years, and it's no different than it's been, you know, there was a time where somebody stole every dollar that the club had. And they go through cycles sometimes. You get, because it's a volunteer organization, sometimes you get the people that you're talking about, Blake, and they did. It was a bad board. And now they got a good group they got two of them sitting right back there that's been there, they were there before I was there. They've got a good group. And I think that once you get that dynamic back and you basically say, hey, we're under new management, we're focused on every kid, not just that group of kid, that some of these kids are gonna start coming back. Because they left, like, I'm not messing with that anymore. Couple of things, and that being one of them. The other thing is, and I'd mentioned this in our very first, well, it was when we were talking about the, putting money in the program, or putting money in the park over there. You know, a lot of people, they like this pretty stuff over in Cabot and, you know, all these places. They got really nice facilities, so that turns them on. They want to go there. Well, we got something they don't have, and that's longevity. It's nostalgia. It's Sylvan Hills. We want to play at Sylvan Hills. We gotta make it look better. And we've not had that. Like I said in that meeting, since the tornado, we've not had anything done to the program, to the park, since the tornado hit. And we need to start sprucing it up. So I think once we get these guys focusing on the kids in the program, I think that will start turning around. Those numbers will start rising back up.
And I want to.
And then may have to match our plan on
Let me just
Saturday.
Let
we've already-
me pass it to the mayor. The mayor wanted to say something, and I think we need to cut this
Yeah,
discussion on this
a
topic.
couple of things. Last year, we did invest, and we fixed up the restrooms, which were long overdue and really needed, and people have really appreciated that. And we have different things that we're doing this year in terms of the baseball park. So I don't want it out there that we're ignoring
no,
baseball,
no.
because we're not. The
No,
other thing too
that was
is.
in the past.
Well, I know, but people take things that are said and they twist them on social media. Also, I want to make sure that it's clear that, Bruce, that as of right now, we're doing more than we ever have in terms of there's no expectation of any in-kind donation. There's no percentage of any type of concessions. I feel like that was very onerous to try to figure out, between all that, and there's no fees, okay? So, I mean, the city is fully behind the baseball program and trying to get it to where it is. I think it's 130 right now for
It's 130. It went up from
130 for
100.
the baseball fees, but that has nothing to do with any, that is.
not the city.
We don't
That
set
is
the prices.
not the city. The city does
No, that's
not
the
get
club.
a penny. That is just the club. And I want to make sure that that is very clear, that we're not out for money and we're not hurting anybody, and we're doing more than we have ever done in the past, I don't know how
Yeah,
many
and
years.
I don't want to seem ungrateful to what the city did. I mean, we had a super nice park, and we were having to leave Kiel, and we came here, okay? Because, I mean, it's just awesome. And we had a lot of help from different people. It just came to a point where at one point, decisions were made to help the tournament ball when really we needed the backing to keep the rec thing. We were a leader. Other programs looked to see what is Sylvan Hills doing.
Right.
And it didn't happen well because I didn't feel like we had the total backing.
Well, it was
Right.
the club's decision to have tournament teams register. through the
Right, but
club.
That was
that's happened.
That was
All right,
that
guys.
group we got to get rid of.
All right, guys. We got the program agreement was signed for a 6-month term, I understand, a week or two ago.
Yes.
And so we've got a few more months that we can talk about this. We don't have to hash it all out tonight, but I think that we've got a good start. So let's move on to number 6, the Sharks. Blake.
Well, I was just going to bring that up as to a little bit of the history of where that came from. I believe it was 2 years ago, the people that were running the Sharks were looking to have somebody take over the program. They actually had, on 2 different occasions, people agree to take the Sharks program. And then they came to us late last year.
They would back out before, like, pretty quickly.
They're
They would
done.
realize how much was involved with it.
Yeah, but at any rate, they were done. They were not gonna run the program anymore. We were done with, we hadn't had 2 meetings, whether I should have sent an email, yes, I should have. But we made the decision to take the program on. We have a good aquatics coordinator who has a background in competitive swim, who's ready to lead the charge on that. So it was an easy transition into what we do. We also run the youth basketball league, which has been very successful, so we have individuals that can help with that. And I think there was a misconception of how it happened, but it's kind of like the Shack has asked, some members of the Shack have asked us over the last couple of years to take over the program. It hasn't happened, they have a full board. So it hasn't been the full board has approached the city of Sherwood and said, hey, let's take over the program. It's time for y'all to do it. There's been individuals that have asked us to. We haven't done it. The individuals that were running the Sharks were done. That program was done. So we thought it would be an easy transition for us to take over.
So basically, the board you worked with all those years just said, we're done with it. And
Correct. So typically, you would have a parent like myself that would be so fully in and was willing to spend a huge amount of their life, running it. And I know, Mike, you can relate to that and so forth. And it's just nobody. For 2 years, we tried to get somebody. And the Potts family, who have been wonderful in terms of heading that up, but their son's graduating and they're done. And it's like, it takes a toll on families, marriages, on everything else, And so they basically came to us and said, especially Tina, said, no more. I'm absolutely done. And it's either the city take it over or we don't have a swim program. And so the reason why I brought up the advisory thing is because some people have put out there that, I need to be investigated and all these different type of things. Absolutely ridiculous. We had in the past, this is not the first time something like this has happened. We had, I think you recall, Councilmember Broderick wanted a wrestling program, came to Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec said no, volleyball would be next. The mayor at the time went to Sonny and said, nope, you're gonna run a wrestling program. Blake was pulled off of his duties, and for 6 kids, the city ran a wrestling program for 1 year, got a $10,000 mat. I think it's over at the high school now, and so forth. What we did was a lot more thoughtful than that. We had a meeting with the people who used to run it, with the aquatics director, with the coach, myself, Blake. We had everybody in a room, the finance director, to iron out step by step, what are the needs, how could this happen with this work? And we're able to come up with a way in which it wouldn't affect the general fund budget. It doesn't affect at all how the facilities are being used. There's no change in any of those things. And this is going to be a big positive because a lot of programs, a lot of kid programs, unfortunately, it's not just baseball, it's not just swimming. A lot of kids' programs that are volunteer-based are dwindling. And so more and more cities are having to take over running of programs in order to keep them alive. Tab mentioned that they had to do it when he was mayor of their baseball and softball program in Conway. Because it was just, sometimes with parents, you've got generations of parents that have the time, and you've got more stay-at-home parents and can do it. And then other times, the economy doesn't allow that, and they don't have that kind of time. And I think, and then you throw COVID into the mix of kind of everything that happened with all of that and the way that it changed the mindsets of families, and I think that's kind of where we are today. Nothing was ever meant from Blake, from myself, in any way, shape, or form, to slight anyone. The Sherwood Sharks have never been discussed in Parks and Rec. I was originally put on Parks and Rec so that there would be some type of swimming representation. But it's never anything, we've never talked about how the program works, how the only knowledge anyone on council or whatever ever had is when I would bring them out to celebrate their championships.
We've discussed
So-
their needs as far as the pools and things like that on a regular basis. You've brought that up before us. We need this needs to be done to the pool, that needs to be done to the pool, and things of that nature. But that's the only thing that we've ever really discussed is their needs as far as facilities.
Well,
And
they're-
them and the
yeah.
Dolphins both.
They're-
So what is the difference between Sharks and Dolphins?
So Sharks is a rec league. That's for anything from your beginner to your advanced swimmer. So the Dolphins are a USA certified team, and so basically you can't take someone who's a super beginner. The Sharks is it's kind of like you talk about.
The league.
And maybe I've got this wrong because I didn't grow up in the baseball world, but anyway, it is the next step. And for, you guys know, my kids all did swim in college. We actually, the Sherwood Sharks, we had multiple kids that started with the Sharks, transitioned to the Dolphins, swam in the Olympic trials. We've had them at U of A and Missouri State and colleges all over the country. And the kids remain very devoted to the Sharks. Your Sylvan Hills program, the Sharks are the backbone of the Sylvan Hill program. But there are also kids who go on to swim at the Mount and at Catholic and North Little Rock or whatever. They all start somewhere,
Right.
With it. And so that Sharks program is it's that easy first step into the competitive swimming world. And then the Dolphins is more of a year-round program. They work hand in hand with each other, but they're different levels and different intensities.
Can you tell us how old the Sharks program is?
I honestly do not know when the sharks started, because I know it originally used to be like at the Fairway Pool, which is not even a 25-yard pool. I know that they've been around for a very long time. When, I know in, 2000 is when I was approached, because kind of the same situation where it's like, there's no one to take over the team, and the parent reps were quitting, and help, we need someone to take over the team. And so my son asked me to, and so I did. At that time, we maybe had 40 kids, maybe, on a lucky day. They would get their swimsuits at Lands End, and, and then from there, we ended up 315 strong, I think, at the peak. And they've really struggled post-COVID. So but trying to find someone who's willing to take that on is like a mission in life. And we used to everything was run out of my home for a really long time. We didn't have a building or an office or anything, so.
Well, you're exactly right in that there's no reason for calling for investigations or anything. There wasn't anything that you did
No.
wrong as far as your office or anything like that. But I guess you have to understand, too, that when you're chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee and people call you and say, why was the Sharks moved under the city? Why is it a city program now? And you have to say to them in a very embarrassing voice, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never heard of this before. What on earth are you talking? Where'd you hear this and stuff like that? It's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. And so, that when decisions like that are made, it's just better just to drop an email to the Parks Committee so that when we get those calls, we know what we're talking about.
And we don't disagree with you. It
Yeah,
it kind of fell in the holidays
Yeah.
and,
All right, 2024 projects. Blake?
Let me find it. So Sean has a list. We've put together over the last little while a to-do list for Parks and Recreation. Projects, big, small. There's 3 pages currently. But what we've done, and that, I say that just so everybody knows that we do big projects, but there's also tons and tons of little work that gets done across the board from staff. Some of the major projects we're looking to do this year, I'll start with the baseball park. We're going to have the exterior of the concessions at baseball, the exterior of the concessions at softball renovated and redone. We're looking to upgrade the roof at both baseball and softball. The paved area where on the baseball side leaves a lot to be desired. There's bumps, there's cracks, there's holes. We've already done a lot to address some fall off in different areas, but we're going to repave that entire area.
and that's through A&P, right?
A&P's doing.
Yeah, I don't want you to think this is all the city.
well,
Some of
that's-
this is
we're-
A&P.
Yeah, we're over those projects, but A&P's graciously gave a lot. We're building a new restroom at the old soccer complex. We're also going to be building at Lake Sherwood. We were awarded a grant, so we're going to start the process on putting a new basketball court there. If you've ever been there, it is a concrete slab that has holes that you can turn your ankle in just by watching them or walking in it. We're going to put a new parking area as well as a new restroom over there for people to utilize.
Upgrade fencing, lighting,
got a list
bleachers,
I just
and
gotta
it'll
find
be ADA compliant so that the rolling Razorbacks can also
At
be
the
there as
gym-
well.
The rec center, we're replacing the gym floor. We met with a contractor in there. We're having issues a little bit on that, getting people to show up when they say they're going to come look at the floor to get pricing. We've been running into that quite a bit. City Hall will receive 2 pickleball courts with lights up, with the intention of those to be open 24/7 if people choose.
That's another A&P project, right?
That is.
We'll also be improving the little playground area over there. So, there's,
And the swing set at Stonehill. I mean, we've got ourselves spread out. We've got a lot to do. We've got a very ambitious goal this year of getting this stuff done. We sure hope we can do it. Hopefully, we're further along on some of these projects. Towards the end of the year, we'd like to get them started. And, we just finished up one of the restrooms that we intended on having done last year. We still got one left to go. We'd like to have these done But like I said, I'll provide updates on these as well. And we also, as we roll into next year or halfway through this year, start planning the budget, welcome any ideas for future projects, and things that need improvement. We got a lot of, as we've mentioned on several occasions, older facilities that need some maintenance, updates and things of that nature. So we look for.
We're trying to
any ideas.
focus on different, areas. So like, we kind of are looking more this year at kind of that middle swath of the city. So some little, new swing set. We don't have a swing set, so a swing set, not a new one. A swing set, at Stonehill Park, putting a swing set and then some other little things for the little ones to play on over here at the City Hall Park. And then Storer Park, it needed some connecting pathways, as had been identified both not only by the neighborhood but also in the park study. So we out in Henson Park, we're going to be moving the pavilion so that the pickleball players have a place to sit while they're waiting, because I don't know if y'all have seen, but a lot of times it is packed with players over there, and because really the pavilion's not being used at all where it is right now.
A couple options for dog park as well.
Yeah, we're looking at some different things in terms of that. We have a lot of activities that are going to be happening at the City Hall Park, which is why another thing, that was identified in the 2040 plan as well as, the park study is this is our opportunity to create that town square feel. And so we've got, we'll be doing an Easter egg hunt in March up here. As well as we've got a sensory one at the tennis courts. We're doing there'll be a city 5K, and we're utilizing a completely new route than we've ever done before. And then in April, we start the music series up here, and we've got groups lined up for April, May, June, July. Event will be out at the golf course. If y'all didn't go last year, you definitely should go this year. It was amazing. August, dive-in movie at Thornhill Park. And then September, we'll be back here for live music again. October, we've got the Night of Unity, which is, in celebration of our first responders and so forth. And then November, Night of Remembrance, and then December, Winterfest. So every single month, there's activities, free activities for families, for kids, for grandparents, and everything to be up here. In May, we're also doing the fishing derby like we did last year, getting kids out there and giving them an opportunity to fish and so forth. It's the Kids to Park, I think, celebration. So Parks has a...
Is that here or at Sherwood?
No, it's here.
It's here, okay.
It's here, yes, sir. So anyway, there's a lot going on in Parks. Y'all should stop by and go to Blake's
not ready.
office and see his giant whiteboard of projects that they're constantly,
empty.
going over, so.
It's empty right now, though. Give me a day.
Are all the,
Just put a new one up.
are all the outdoor restrooms that same design that we're doing?
They are.
Uniform design, everything?
Yeah, we found that was with Sean as the general on that. From the one that we put in at Indian Head, I would say 60 grand savings each one we do.
Okay.
Based on how that was done. So we definitely do it for 30 or 40,000 less than that, or just the facility itself cost by doing them ourselves.
Is the one on Hughes Park, is that on your radar?
The restroom, it can be. What would we need?
Yeah, that thing is,
It's in bad
it's
shape.
been there when the swimming pool was there, same one. I think they redid it, but it's nothing like what you guys have been working on, and,
We can definitely-
may want to put that on
The list.
yeah,
Take
Well-
a tour of it.
yeah.
Well, like I said, we're trying to kind of
Sure.
hit,
Yeah.
different areas as we can. I mean, there's some things over at the youth center we're looking at, in the future and so forth.
Well,
And
that one needs some
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
That one really.
Well, that one does. And if you go look at the top tennis court at the youth center, You can't even get on it. I mean, we've got a lot of work to do.
Okay.
We do.
I've forgotten, what about accessible playground equipment? Where were we going with accessible playground equipment?
So, and I got an email and I responded to someone on that. To do it and do it right, because you don't want to do it and it just kind of be half-hearted with it. I mean, you want a really good playground that attracts kids of all abilities, and that's what makes those kind of playgrounds so special. So certainly for the land that we have out on Jacksonville-Cato, we're hoping to be able to put a large community park out there. I mean, that was like number one on the list because it's flat already, and that's such a big deal on those all-inclusive parks. And so much of our land is not flat or it's swampy. Neither of those two things are real good, but certainly that's where we're hoping to be able to do that. We've got some opportunities in 2025 to be able to do some big things with parks, and so that was number one out there. Also, we're hoping with any, since we got the grant, they haven't made their official announcement yet, so I guess it's kind of out there now. But anyway, if there is any leftover money, one of the things we are looking at doing is starting work on the mountain bike nature trails over in Miller's Park. And that, once again, was another thing that was identified as a need in the city. And those type of parks are not like expensive parks to develop. And Daniel Lissick, I think it's his last name. Anyway, yes, he's been out there and he's walked it, and so we're starting it kind of like what we did with disc golf. You find the people who are passionate about it and experts at it, and utilize them in your community. So we're doing that as well.
Okay, my last question on projects. I've emailed you about 2 projects today. Did you get a chance to look at either one of those situations, either the space where the air conditioning units are or that sidewalk?
Yeah, we've got, John Lee will be going to, we looked at those the other day. There's a couple of them that say not in use. So for whatever reason, when they replaced those units, they didn't remove them. I really can't speak to why. The walkway down, we are looking to connect it down, tear out what is already crumbled, crumbling up. We'd also like to connect it and have a new fence going into the restaurant area with a ramp that goes down to where they can actually deliver their things off a ramp rather than a hump, and hopefully not lose what they're taking down there. So that's what we've looked at internally. We already
also would be ADA compliant, I assume, too. Because we need to remain ADA compliant on that side so that people with scooters, wheelchairs, things like that.
That's in Sean's wheelhouse on the ADA.
I think officially we are because you can
On
come
the other
around
side,
the
see
other
what,
way.
and that's, I don't want to misspeak or say anything against the ADA but when we were going through the stuff with the parking lot, they did it on that side, which they were saying that satisfied all ADA requirements, which did make a lot of sense because we still have this other side. So that was in the planning on the parking lot, so.
Because I just know that after dark, most people that go to Joey's got the sign pointing of Joey's and everything else. People go down the left side. Nobody goes down the right side.
I don't disagree at all.
We've got, I think we've got a handrail situation over there. We don't have handrails. We've got crumbling concrete and everything
it's
else.
shattering,
So I'd
yeah.
like to look into the.
No, we
look
can
into all
we can
that.
meet over there and take a look. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, in those plans with the parking lot, it didn't even connect the cart path to the parking lot. So a lot of the things that
did
we're doing
that.
after the fact, we're seeing these things, and we're trying to aggressively get after them
yeah.
within the budget scheme that we have.
Do you know if that net's gonna go up?
It's got-
Is it
well,
behind
yeah.
9?
Yeah, it is.
That's kind of
Well,
scary
well,
there.
yeah, it is. It's a bigger net than what was there, so the net should be in, and we should be able to get a hold of that as well. So it's bigger than what it was, for sure. I stood over there and said that, I thought I was safe on the side, and I was talking with Don, I said, I'm good. Ball landed 2 foot from me, I said, all right, we're going higher and we're going over. So not because, it had nothing to do with the fact that I was just about got hit, but it had a lot to do with that at the time, so it was good timing.
Okay. I kind of dominated the conversation there. Anybody questions on this projects, 2024 projects?
Hey, Blake, you mentioned just make sure I heard, you said City Hall was going to get 2 pickleball courts?
That is the plan, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thanks.
That should help alleviate Henson, yes, with it,
Where are they
so.
going?
Right where I parked. You know where I park every time for the meetings? Right here in this section between the top of the pool parking lot over where there's a little overflow right there. It'll be right there on that slab.
I did have one other thing. I thought about it when you were talking about moving the pavilion at Henson. Is that going to give us a way to expand parking or improve parking for that park at all, or is there any way?
I don't think so, but what it will do is, right now, you've got a trail that goes through a middle of the parking lot,
Right.
which is not, that's not a good idea.
not
So
bad.
what it will allow us to do by taking out that pavilion is to have the trail going around to the edge, so you'll cross over there by the bridge instead of in the middle of a parking lot.
That'd be-
Yeah, we looked into adding additional parking over there, and then once you move that and reconnect the trail, there was,
It's,
Nothing we did.
I think we almost
All right.
need more land. so.
Just a thought. All right,
no, we would use some more parking over there for sure. The neighbors would appreciate that if we found any, so.
all right. Moving on to new business.
Two things I would like to just bring up for consideration for a possible future meeting. We're looking at, and Lauren Alexander, who's doing our rentals out at the Greens, was unable to attend, but she was going to be here to present on this. We're looking at possible rental discounts at our rental facilities if we want to entertain, have anything across the board for our facilities that we do at the Durand Youth Center, the Bill Harmon Rec Center, Sherwood Forest, and the Greens. We've been approached many a times about giving discounts, if we can give discounts, if employees can have discounts, nonprofit organizations can have discounts. I would just like to bring it up to possible consideration if we want to have any kind of policy that we can enforce across the board. If they qualify for, if they, meet these qualifications, we may give 10, 20% or nothing, or we just say this is the rental facility, rental price, and that's where we go.
We're in an awkward situation where, and I'm just going to put it out there so that they understand. So we've got Lisa Academy and Abundant Life that hold their proms there, and they were, wanting discounts. And, it's, yeah, they're proms. And so you get, at the Greens. And so you get in a, some people want discounts and some people feel like they're supposed to have, they're entitled to discounts or whatever. And it puts us in an awkward situation if you give it to this group and you don't give it to that group, and we're trying to be fair.
A lot of those conversations come as a result of having already received some in the past. And then you'll have, say, a church calls and says, without asking, that, they're going to pay the full price. Well, to me, it's not exactly right to have an individual who's requested a discount and receives a discount, and then somebody else comes, utilizes the facility, pays full price. I think we're doing people a disservice by either, not doing it one way versus the other. I mean, if we want to give a discount, I'm all for it. If we don't, I'd be okay with that as well. But I would love the consideration to kind of qualify what we're going to give discounts for, if we are at all. So,
I'm with employee discounts. I think it's one of the things, you got a guy that works at a place that he can't afford to use. That's not cool. So I'm cool with employee discounts, but if you get into agency and organization, like if you're letting one school rent it for one price, you're gonna have to let it, and I'm not, some of the schools we're talking about have no issue with the regular price.
right.
So I don't have a problem with employee. You want to do the thing is figuring out who we're giving discounts. So we talking about employees, military members, whatever. But when it comes to organizations, that's kind of tough.
Right, and that's where I would rather know where we are, and have our people doing the rentals know where we are. We either do, we don't. And I totally agree with what you're saying. I would like for our staff members to know exactly where we are.
Have you had organizations say, hey?
We've had organizations in the past that several years used to, they would almost trade services. when Colleen came on board, we found some things out we needed to do different. So we want to make sure we clean everything up. We got a lot to clean up, and this is just another one of those.
And it's
another step.
especially hard when you're talking about a Saturday in April, because that's your prime
No,
bridal season,
absolutely.
type of a thing to,
Saturday in June, yeah.
to do that. And I do think, and not trying to be rude, Charlie, or anybody, but I think there's a difference between an employee and an elected official. I shouldn't receive a discount. D should get a discount, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's where it's,
So it becomes full-time paid employees, yeah. I agree with that too, but I think probably the next best step on this would be a survey of other facilities in other cities, and then bring that to us and let us know what that looks like and
If y'all-
what other cities are doing.
We'll jump on that. I just want to enter that into the possibility. And then one of the last things I'd like to bring up is I'd love some recommendations. I know it's come up in the past as far as how parks maintenance kind of takes care of some of our parks facilities. There's been individuals who have requested we clean up fence lines in parks that alter their view or to clear their view. I'm not really interested in making it one person, we clear off their fence line, and then the next person doesn't, and the next person wants us to. We spent a lot of time recently on clearing a fence line, but I would just assume that either those are our parks. If we don't want to do that, I think we should be able
are
to.
you confused? So he's talking about like people who back up to parks, or people
Or face
who
them.
overlook a park, or,
Okay.
where they don't want the vegetation to grow up because it blocks a view.
Yeah, this started with a park we have that people that lived across the street had a view, and as the trees and everything matured in the park, it obscured their view. And so the Parks Department mowed and cut their part, but didn't do any of the rest of the park in front of the other houses. And, I think that, parks have character, and different parks have different character. A park that's a heavily wooded park that might have a bicycle trail running through it or something like that is going to have trees that are going to mature, and shrubbery and things like that that's going to mature and grow over time. And so something like that you're not going to cut and you're not going to trim, other than keep the trail itself clear. Other parks are closely mowed, the golf course is a park, for instance. So it's manicured and cut in a different way. Henson Park is a park, and, part of it is kept closely mowed, but as you walk the trail and you get further down and you're headed towards Pickthorn Park, which it connects to, you're in a thickly wooded area. It's completely, it's a canopy, basically, that you're walking through, and it's nice. You like it that way. It's part of the character of the park. And, I just think these are decisions that are going to have to be made basically on a case-by-case basis, but I don't think that anything should be done personally, I don't think, that changes the character of the park. Am I making sense?
No, you are. You absolutely are. What about if somebody brings something to us, we either bring it here or, tell them we're not. I mean,
I'd start with the
mayor.
that's a
Right.
day-to-day operation decision, I would think. Let's
Advisory.
start with the mayor on that one.
Perfect. We can handle it.
Any more new business?
That's
Anybody?
all I got.
All right, old business? Anybody? Okay, any announcements? You guys have some announcements for us?
Pretty much nailed them earlier.
Yeah, I already said, we've got lots of events coming. Check out the calendars. And, I didn't mention Eclipse, but we'll be utilizing the sports complex out there. If anybody would like a place to go and watch the eclipse, because we've got bleachers. We'll have a concession stand, so there'll be some food, and there'll be bathrooms, which is a big deal in Central Arkansas because there are no porta potties available in Central Arkansas. So it's a place where we can control the lights, and there's open area. So if you want to utilize that, please come, so.
And next meeting, we'll be sure and have some of the Eclipse glasses here for you, because we have some Sherwood
do
Eclipse
have some.
glasses.
We
I didn't
do,
think to
yes.
bring any this meeting, but we have some that are for Sherwood people, and if you want to have some extras to give out, we'll have them here for you. All right, motion to adjourn? Anybody?
I make a motion.
All right, there you go, say, thanks.
So moved.